Hello everyone, and my name is Adrit Shikhar and I'm a member of STS Labs. So today we'll be having our mini lecture on OAuth. So yes, please ask your friends if they are joining to come first. We'll be starting in a few minutes.
Hi. So if anyone of you did not join in the last lecture, so these lectures will be small, like 15 to 20 minutes, and you'll get a chance to ask questions at the end of the lecture. If you have some you can your doubt in the chat, members will help you with that. But apart from that, for the lecture to go smoothly, I'll request if everyone would keep their mics on mute during the lecture. I think we can start the lecture. So if anyone wants to join in, I'll keep admitting them.
So may as well start. Okay. Good evening everyone. This is a
Also,
mini
the
lecture
lectures would
series.
be recorded. So by joining, everyone is consenting to the recording.
Okay. Good evening everyone. This is a mini lecture brought to you by STS Labs. So our aim is to keep it concise as well as relevant to the topic. So today we'll be covering OAuth 2.0 in emojis and GIFs. And we hope that it is simpler and easier to understand. So, okay. So what's OAuth? So OAuth is an acronym for Open Authorization. This is a technique used to provide users information without actually taking the credentials of that user. This mechanism is used by popular companies such as Google, Facebook, GitHub, Microsoft, etc. The user is in control of who sees what. So it's a particular set of rules, and it uses this set of rules to make this happen. For example, when you click on sign in with Facebook on any third-party application like Spotify, then you allow Spotify to use specific information like your profile picture and email only. Anything else will not be shared by Facebook to Spotify because you only specified particular information. So throughout this flow, user has control of who sees what. And OAuth is particularly used by services to authorize other services. So there is no need of a middleman to virtually give access to every particular service. So here are some terminologies of OAuth flow. The first comes is the client. So the client is the application that seeks the access to the resources. For example, Spotify wants to access your Facebook details. So Spotify is a client here. Next comes is the resource owner. So the user who owns the resources. Am I clear? Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. So the resource owner is the user who owns the resources. So it can be a machine or it can be a service like Facebook. Facebook owns your details. So there comes the resource. You must have understood this term resource. Resource is the data that has been that has into storage by the resource server. So the resource server is the protected resources it's usually an API server that serves the resources if a proper token is furnished. So authorization server, this server is responsible for authorizing the client so that it can use the resources. User agent, it's a browser or a mobile application through which a resource owner can communicate with the authorization server. So this is the most important thing, the access token. The access token is issued as a result of successful authorization. An access token can be obtained for a set of permissions, or what you can say is rules, and has a predetermined lifetime after which it expires. And usually that lifetime is of 1 hour. So after 1 hour, this access token won't be able to provide any resources to the client. So this is the refresh token. So a refresh token is something which is a special type of token, and this is used to replenish the access token once it is expired. So after your access token gets expired, refresh token can be used to regenerate the access token and skip the prior steps to that. So here comes to the history of OAuth. So OAuth was started in 2006 when Blaine Cook was developing Twitter OpenID implementation. He wanted to give access of dashboard to his members of the group without actually sharing their passwords. So the first implementation of OAuth was OAuth 1.0 and was introduced in 2007 and is believed to be more secure than OAuth 2.0, but it's less flexible and more complex than 2.0, and it requires more steps to actually implement it. So OAuth 1.0 is based on having shared secrets between the consumer and the server. So it's no longer between services and services. So it's between a consumer and a server that are used to calculate the signatures. So OAuth 2.0 was introduced in 2012 and is in the industry since then, and is based on bearer token usage. So this is a technical application of OAuth flow. I'll give you here all a moment to go through it first, and then we'll have a discussion on that. So in this example, we have an application named Printer, which is a printing service, obviously. So it wants to access a photo which is owned by a resource. Resource is a storage place for the data, and this data is available to you by a server, which is known as resource server. So what happens is when our client requests the user to allow the printing service to use a certain resource. So when this happens, the user authorizes the service, the printing service, by the authorization server, and the authorization server grants an access token, a key, to the client, which later on the client can use to get the resources from the resource servers. So authorization servers, in short, authorization server grants a key to the client, and the client can use that key to get data from the resource server anytime it wants. So you don't have to, and it depends on the client that either it wants to store that data, that key, or not. You can regenerate it every time you want it, or you can simply store that key to use that later on. So it purely depends on the application of OAuth. So here are some flows, and now I'd like to ask my friend Araman to continue further.
Thanks, Adrich. Now, since we know about the term associated and the basic understanding of the OAuth flow, the popular flows. So they are auth code grant flow, client credentials grant flow, implicit grant flow, and the resource owner password credential grant flow. Also, there's a more secure authorization code grant with PKCE, which provides protections against other attacks where the authorization code might be intercepted. So the auth code grant flow. At a high level, the flow has the following steps. The application sends the user to the auth server. The user sees the authorization prompt and approves the app's request. Then third, the user is redirected back to the application with an authorization code in the query string. And the last, the application exchanges the authorization code for an access token. It's a popular browser-based authorization flow for web and mobile apps. You can directly relate it with the above mentioned example. In this diagram, the flow starts from the client, redirecting the user to the authorization endpoint. This flow is optimized for the confidential clients. Now, what are confidential clients? Are apps that can guarantee the secrecy of the client secret. A part of this flow happens in the front channel until the authorization code is obtained. As you can see, the access token exchange step happens confidentially via a back channel, that is server to server communication, without any involvement of the front end. You can have a look at the GIF. Now you might naturally wonder, what about the public clients? So client credentials grant flow. The client makes a post request to the OAuth server. The OAuth server issues the access token immediately in response to the client. The client credentials flow is a server to server flow. There is no user authentication involved in the process. In fact, there is no user at all. The resulting access tokens will not contain a user, but will contain the client ID as subject, of course, if not configured otherwise. Since there is no user authorization, the flow only interacts with the token endpoint. This flow is useful for systems that need to perform API operations when no user is present. It can be some nightly operations or some other involve contacting OAuth protected APIs. In the above flow, the resource owner had to provide consent. There can also be scenarios where a user's authorization is not required every time. For example, when you register yourself for your client app in the Google Developers Console, the client credentials grant flow is used. Look at the GIF. This is the simplest of all the OAuth flow we are going to discuss. The implicit grant flow. At a high level, the flow has the following steps. The application opens a new tab to send the user to the OAuth server. The user sees the authorization prompt and approves the app's request. The user is redirected back to the application with an access token. This flow is no longer recommended officially. Implicit grant was considered an alternative to the authorization code grant for public clients. As you can notice, the public client does not contain the client secret and there is no back channel involved. In fact, the access token is obtained immediately after the consent is obtained. Token that is extracted in this manner and the subsequent calls are made to fetch the resources. As you can already see, this flow is really susceptible to access token leakage and replay attacks as the token is stored in the front end. Have a look at the GIF of the implicit grant flow. The next one, resource owner password credentials flow. In this, the client makes a post request to the OAuth server. The OAuth server issues the tokens immediately in response to the client. This flow is to be used only when there is a high degree of trust between the resource owner and the client. As you can already see, initially the username and password is obtained from the resource owner and is used to fetch the access token from the authorization server. The user name and password details will be discarded once the token is obtained, or they can be misutilized by the server as well. Hence, this flow is not recommended for modern day applications and is often only used for legacy or for migration purposes. It carries high risk compared to other flows as it follows the password anti pattern that OAuth wants to avoid in the first place. So have a look at this GIF. So it is from the all the four flows we discussed above. It is recommended to use the auth code grant or any other suitable grant types instead of the insecure implicit grant flow. So we concluded here. Thanks everyone for attending the mini lecture. We'll be sharing the slides and resources for you to go through it later on. And now we are open for the Q&A session.
Like in auth code grant flow, the authentication server sends a key, like authorization key. So what information should be visible to the user? How is it decided by the resource server? Like based on just the key.
So the key is encrypted key. So the scopes, so the which resource has to be accessed is specified in that key. For example, if you specify only profile picture and an email, then those two particular scopes, which is termed as scopes, will be specified in the key and will be encrypted in the key itself. So when the key decrypts, we get everything which is encrypted in the key. So the scopes are defined in the key. So only that resources will be served to the client from that resource server.
Okay, so the fields are specified in the key itself. Whatever. Okay. Thank you.
Are there any doubts? So we'll be sharing the slides. Thank you all for attending this lecture.